I want to bring in CBS News White House reporter Jacqueline Alemany. Jacqueline, what are you hearing from your sources at the White House of what led up to this today?
So what we're seeing is obviously after one of the most tumultuous weeks in Trump's fairly nascent presidency is the firing of Anthony Scaramucci, which is remarkable in that he went from being, an insider with rising stock in this White House to being ousted overnight. I think we can take this as a sign of General Kelly, Trump's new chief of staff, is flexing his muscles. He promised order, and while this is a very chaotic shakeup, he is bringing about order to this White House. Last week, as we all know, Anthony had a very vulgar tirade to the New York Times.
The New Yorker, yeah.
The New Yorker.
Yeah.
And that got a record 4 million unique views. That is not the message that Trump wants coming out of his White House. The most viewed piece of news being his new comms director's again, vulgar tirade.
Yeah, against people who at the time were still working at the White House. That was against Reince Priebus, who was the chief of staff, who obviously resigned last Thursday and was replaced by General Kelly, who appears to be behind the firing.
Yeah, and in some ways, Anthony was a very useful tool in ousting Reince and Spicer. Trump had for weeks been discussing with Reince that he wanted him to leave, that he needed a shakeup, he needed something to change in his presidency. And Anthony, in many ways, was the right person to do the dirty work for the president that he didn't necessarily want to do himself.
You're not suggesting, though, that Scaramucci knew he was going to be let go before he even took the position?
No, I'm not. My sources haven't told me that just yet, but I think over the past week, the way things have played out for Anthony between sort of Sal Seitz's page 6 reports about his personal life to, not even necessarily being comfortable with attribution guidelines with reporters, something that is pretty critical.
Right, like that's 101 communications. If you want something to be off the record, say off the record before you go on a verbal tirade.
The other thing is 101.
Yeah, comms 101.
And I also want to say, Anthony promised to oust the White House of leakers, but Anthony himself had a track record for leaking. He's notorious for being press friendly. Tim Miller, Jeb Bush's communications director during the 2016 campaign, tweeted last week that they purposefully withheld conference call numbers from Scaramucci because they were worried about the possibility of him leaking.
He had accused Reince, the chief of staff, of being behind the leaks. Scaramucci had also boasted that he would report directly to the president and not to the chief of staff, who is now John Kelly. That's sort of outside the normal chain of command, isn't it? Do you think that might have gotten him in trouble as well?
Exactly. I think, like I said before, General Kelly came in promising to bring order to this White House, to be the disciplinarian, to play bad cop, and to bring the order that I think that most people, Ivanka and Jared, people closest and most loyal to Trump, believe is necessary for this White House to make a change, to actually sort of implement some sort of sense of process and actually accomplish to achieve some legislative accomplishments, which they have yet to do. And I think that people quickly realized that Anthony was taking great liberties with his stature, and as people say, there's a fine line with the president between amusement and annoyance, and I think Anthony might have passed that line really quickly.